Somewhere on your path to waking up, maybe after a profound realization or a personal collapse, you felt something shift. You glimpsed the illusion, the cycles, the chaos, and then stillness. At first it was electrifying, almost liberating. But gradually that sense of purpose just faded. Not suddenly, not with a bang, but quietly, like your inner fire dimmed and no one flipped the switch back on. You stopped running after things. You stopped caring, not in a reckless way, but in that quiet, existential exhale kind of way. A question started echoing louder. Why do I feel so empty now that I've seen the truth? There's a strange irony here. We expect a spiritual awakening to set our soul ablaze, but for so many, especially the deep thinkers, the empaths, the seekers, it does the opposite. It hollows you out. I recall a friend, brilliant and spiritually in tune, devouring books by Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Ram Dass. After a brutal, dark night of the soul, she got it. She saw through the mirage of ego, the chase for validation, the hollow race for success. But 2 months later, she was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, barely able to move. She told me, "I used to stress about not doing enough. Now I don't care if I do anything at all. I thought waking up would ignite me, not leave me like this." Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, hinted at this post-awakening haze long ago. He didn't use flashy spiritual jargon, but he knew what happens when the unconscious becomes conscious. Jung said, "Enlightenment isn't about chasing visions of light, but about facing the shadows." Sounds poetic until you live it. Awakening isn't the finish line. It's the start of a psychological unraveling, the death of who you thought you were, your goals, your career, your relationships, even your sense of time. It all starts to crumble. Here's the twist, though, as Jung might point out, your ego isn't gone. It's just lost. It's wandering without a compass and without a new direction. Your drive vanishes. You're not depressed or unmotivated in the usual sense. You're in limbo. You've woken up from one reality but haven't stepped into the next. Here's where it gets wild and often misunderstood. What you're feeling isn't failure. It's not clinical depression or anxiety. It's something ancient, almost sacred. Jung warned that our modern world dodges this phase like the plague, this sacred pause, this void, this in-between. He saw it as vital for true individuation, the journey to your authentic self. But nobody warns you about this part, do they? That's what we're diving into next. What's really stirring in your psyche after awakening, and how this loss of motivation might just be the greatest spiritual upgrade you've ever encountered, if you navigate it right. Before we go on, if you're someone who loves exploring the deeper layers of existence and unpacking life's mysteries, hit subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. This channel is here to shine a light on the unseen and guide those walking the strange, winding road of awakening. So if you're drifting in that post-awakening fog, wondering where your spark went, know this. You're not broken. You're undergoing a psychological shift so profound, it's rewriting your inner code. The goals you used to chase, the endless to-do lists, the hustle anthems, they don't move you anymore. Not because you're failing, but because your entire motivation system is dismantling. Jung saw this coming long before it trended online. Let's unpack it. For most of your life, your drive came from your ego, the you thought you were. You wanted to prove yourself, to be seen, to succeed, to be loved. That's not wrong, it's just how humans work. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to navigate the world, but awakening rips that mask off. Suddenly, you're not playing to win anymore because you see the game. That's where it gets strange. Without the mask, your old goals don't fit. They were built for a version of you that's gone. Now you're like an actor who's walked off stage, script in hand, unsure of your lines. That's why you feel unmotivated. You didn't lose your drive, you outgrew its fuel. Jung believed we're not here to serve the ego, but to integrate it, to align it with something deeper. He called this individuation, the process of becoming whole, not the small self-craving applause, but the soul-level self that's connected to everything. This self doesn't care about status or clarity. It's here to embody truth, so when awakening hits, your psyche starts recalibrating. It rejects anything inauthentic, jobs, relationships, ambitions, even that vision board you made in 2020. That's why awakening feels both freeing and disorienting. But Jung cautioned, if you stop here, you get stuck. Some people awaken and fall into spiritual bypassing, thinking nothing matters, that it's all an illusion. They float, they numb out, mistaking detachment for disconnection. But your deeper self wants something else. It wants to live through you, to bring meaning into this human experience. It doesn't reject the world. It redefines your place in it. To get there, you have to navigate a strange middle phase. One Jung described perfectly, though few recognize it while they're in it. There's a stage after awakening that almost no one talks about. It's not shiny or glamorous. It doesn't rack up likes or look like serene meditations in golden fields or poetic captions on social media. It looks like this, sitting in silence, unable to articulate what's happening inside. While the world races on, Carl Jung would say you're not lost, you're in transition. You've stepped away from the ego, but you haven't yet found how to live from your true self. This space isn't failure, it's a sacred rite of passage. But in our always-on, productivity-obsessed world, stillness gets labeled as laziness, and pausing gets mistaken for being stuck. So you judge yourself, and that judgment blocks the very energy your soul is trying to reclaim. Jung had a name for this psychological shift, enantiodromia, the process where things turn into their opposites. When you awaken, your inner rhythm swings from ego-fueled hustle to soul-deep quiet. You go from I have to do it all to why do anything at all. This swing is holy. It's how your psyche finds balance. In ancient myths and stories, this is the hermit's phase, the death before rebirth. It's the caterpillar dissolving into goo inside the cocoon, not a butterfly yet, not a caterpillar anymore, just formless. And yeah, goo doesn't check off to-do lists. It doesn't grind, it dissolves. This is where the ego freaks out, craving action, identity, purpose. But your deeper self whispers, let go. I'm crafting something truer. Here's where modern spirituality often glosses over the messy bits. It pushes follow your bliss or vibrate higher. But Jung would warn you, if you skip the shadows, you miss the treasure. Integrating your shadow, facing the buried, uncomfortable parts of yourself, isn't optional. It's the heart of becoming whole. This sacred emptiness you're feeling, it's where your unconscious finally has room to surface. You're not failing, you're processing. Your psyche, in its wisdom, stalls your ambition, your clarity, even your sense of purpose, forcing you to feel, witness, and reclaim what's been hidden. That's the real work. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop fighting the void, something shifts. Motivation starts to creep back, but it's different. It's not frantic or showy. It's not about hustling. It's quieter, older, a soul-guided current that feels like remembering who you are, not chasing what you're not. Jung called this the rise of the self, not a concept, but a living inner guide. So you've walked through the silence, the stillness, the sacred pause. Now something new stirs within you. Not a thunderbolt, not a spectacle, but a subtle pull. Not to return to your old life, but to create a new one. This is where the self begins to speak, not in loud declarations, but in nudges, in resonance, in what Jung called the symbolic life. He believed that once the ego steps aside and the unconscious integrates, we start living from a place deeper than personality. Life stops being about survival and becomes about meaning. Here's the surprising part. It's often beautifully simple. When the self leads, you don't hustle, you respond. You're not driven by fear of falling behind, you're guided by what feels true. You don't chase clarity, you recognize it when it arrives. Living from the self doesn't mean you're always motivated in the old sense. You might still feel tired, confused, or even heavy with grief. That's human. But you won't feel that nagging sense of betraying yourself, of forcing your way through a life that doesn't fit. Instead, you might notice you're drawn to create, even if no one's watching. You say no to things that don't resonate, even if they look perfect on paper. You follow curiosity, not checklists. You choose presence over performance. This is the new fuel, not adrenaline, but alignment. Jung called this living symbolically, not lost in fantasy, but attuned to your soul, where dreams, synchronicities, and gut instincts become your compass. What does this look like in practice? Sometimes it's as simple as asking new questions. Instead of "what should I do?" ask, "what's quietly pulling me?" Instead of "what's the plan?" ask, "where is life guiding me?" Instead of "how do I prove myself?" ask, "what feels true?" You start dancing with life instead of trying to control it. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition, it means transforming it. Ambition becomes devotion to truth, to presence, to growth. And the irony? That kind of energy achieves more than the ego ever could, but it's sustainable. It's soul-powered. This is the self's motivation, not to impress, but to express. It leads you to create, serve, heal, teach, or build, not because you have to, but because your entire being says yes. So, if you've been feeling like your fire's gone out after awakening, know this: it's the old flame that burned away too. Make space for a deeper one that doesn't waver when the world gets loud. Jung never promised an easy road, and if you're here, you're already walking it. This isn't about clawing back your old motivation. It's about discovering a new one, rooted in wholeness, not performance. This isn't the end of your awakening. It's the start of your becoming. If this resonates, if it helps you name something you've been quietly wrestling with, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what this journey feels like for you. And if you want more content like this, exploring psychology, soul, and self-awareness in ways that actually make sense for real life, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom. Awakening isn't the end of the story. It's where the real story begins.